was sort of awkward 7'4". He's the future. But Ant Edwards he was the next MJ-ish, Kobe-ish player. Wildly dynamic. Great kid. Winning lots of games. Like, he was it. Yesterday it came out. The 10 most viewed players in this league based on clips. Ant's nowhere in the top 10. What the hell happened? Klay Thompson makes the list? LaMelo Ball? Why is Ant Edwards not in the top 10? Because he's dunking half as much and shooting over 10 threes a game. I don't mind three-pointers from guys who are limited athletically. LaMelo, Stephen Klay. Ant Edwards has MJ and Kobe stuff. The league is becoming increasingly homogenous. I thought Wemby, by the way, was a unicorn. I was lectured on his versatility. Now he's a 7'4" Steph. I was told Ant was going to be Kobe. He's shooting almost 11 threes a game. Tom Cruise is an action movie star. That's what Tom Cruise is. I don't want to see him in rom-coms. I'm not interested. He could probably do them. I want to see The Rock and Tom Cruise and certain actors. I want to see him in action movies. That gets me in. I don't want the NBA to become a sea of chain restaurants where I can tell you what the menu is before I walk in. The NFL's got all sorts of unique players, even at quarterback. There's giant Josh Allen and tiny Kyler Murray. Mahomes plays one way, Goff plays another. Derrick Henry, the running back, stylistically different than Christian McCaffrey or Saquon Barkley. Wemby now shooting 10 threes, and Edwards dunking half as much. I don't think it's good for the league.
All right, let's talk about this. So I agree with Colin's arching kind of philosophy about saying, he doesn't want everything to be the same and homogenous and all that fun stuff. I wholeheartedly agree with that. But first off, Tom Cruise has been in multiple romantic comedies, and one of the most famous ones, Jerry Maguire, show me the money. Iconic films ever, especially of that genre. So just kind of funny that he's saying that. You complete me. That's literally one of the most famous lines in all of cinema. But okay, it's okay. We'll let that go. I'm sure he can do it. Yeah, he's done it, and okay. But in terms of that, it's Ant is because of him not dunking. Well, first off, John Morant is dunking less. Steph Curry doesn't dunk. Klay Thompson doesn't dunk. I mean, that's just not it. I mean, I'm sorry. And you know what? If you're relying on dunks to bring in the views, all the views, I don't know what to say to you. This isn't 1987 here. Dunks are cool, but it's not all the... If the NBA just involved more dunks, especially these free-range dunks where it's just someone's kind of trucking down the lane and is able to dunk pretty easily, I don't care about that. I do love more mid-range and more gritty, tough shots. I do like that as well, but I don't know where the game goes from here. I really don't, because I'm not so sure if we could watch games from the 90s, if we would say, now this is basketball. I think we'd see a lot of missed shots and a lot of bad shots. I'm not saying that there needs to be more threes, but I think when you see a lot, that's why people always try to poke at Kobe or LeBron, or Kobe or MJ or Allen Iverson and players like that who were really exciting to watch. But they talk about them not being as efficient players as some of the more modern day players because they took harder shots because it was a different style of play, a more physical game. That if we now just suddenly turned on right now, I think a lot of people would be like, come on, Kobe, why are you taking that shot? It's a bad shot. I think that's what a lot of people would say. Oh, Allen, what are you doing? Pass the ball. And yet that's what drove views. That's what drove energy. But a part of me believes that ship has sailed. Now, I'm not saying I want to see teams shoot 53s either. So I'm not going to pretend like I know what the solution is. But that's why I want to ask you, you're watching this video, which means you obviously like basketball. It means you most likely love basketball if you're watching a smaller channel like me talk about basketball. Which means you're obviously passionate and really love the game. So I'm curious, what makes you either watch more or less basketball right now? Have you seen your appetite to watch games decline? I know for me it has. And it's not so much because of the style of play. It's part of it to a degree. But to me, the more I live my life, the more my time and my attention gets crunched, I need true action. I need stakes. I need games to matter. So for me, it's always been that there's too many games and that they just don't matter. Wembanyama and Embiid went toe-to-toe last night, although Embiid, I think, got thrown out by the first half. And the reality is like, that could be a fun matchup. Embiid, he's older now, more of a vet. And Wembanyama's trying to take over. He's trying to start. And that head-to-head matchup should be really, really exciting. But the reality is that it's just one game out of 82. So it just doesn't matter. There's not even necessarily like future playoff implications for this matchup. Compare it to, say, Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, and that's a regular season game that can't miss TV because it really, really matters. That game matters. It has playoff implications. The Bills were able to give the Chiefs their first loss of the season. Josh Allen was in that game. It would be like, yo, it's my time now. Like there was actually just real stakes. Things really mattered. And basketball lacks that. If LeBron James and Steph Curry played again against each other today, does it really matter if Steph goes off and puts up 40 points and 10 threes? Or if LeBron James goes off for 45? It would be a fun game and an interesting game and a cool game, but at the end of the day, it just wouldn't matter. That's the problem. These games fundamentally... The playoffs are still awesome. I jump onto the playoffs and can't wait to watch them. And I'm excited when they knock down threes. I'm excited for no matter what they do. And yeah, you are watching someone like Ant play in last year against teams like whether it be the Nuggets or the Mavs. And I'm like, drive the ball more. Get to the hoop. Like, let's go. Don't just sit back and shoot threes. So I get it. Because sometimes when a player's shooting threes and it looks like that they're just kind of like tired and they can't drive or they can't be physical, then you're just like, all right, I'm kind of watching like old men play now. It's kind of like you're not watching like high level threes. You're just watching kind of old men who are just like, okay. It's just like wreck, pick up ball. It was just like older people. That's what you see. So it's not so much the threes themselves. It might be the style of threes. But to me, it gets boiled down to that there's just too much to watch right now. Too much content. And if I could watch, and again, like, let's take like a top matchup. Again, OKC versus the Mavs, or even if we can just really rewind the clock, let's just say, because let's just take two iconic brands and two iconic players and teams, the Lakers and the Warriors. I mean, let's rewind this clock back to 2018. I feel as though right now, let's say even KD was back on that squad and all of that, I feel like I would be like, you know what? I'll watch this game, but like I'll start at halftime. I'll record it and I'll kind of like fast forward and get a sense like, is this a good game? Is this a good back and forth? If it is, all right, I'll just let it play. But otherwise, if it's like Thursday night, I'll watch a football game. I'll watch a college game. I'll watch something on Netflix. I'll watch YouTube videos. I mean, also, the NBA has actively hurt themselves because they fail to understand that what so many people watch these games are not just for these individual highlights on social media platforms and stuff. That so much of it is also like, you know what? Give me good commentators. Give me good back and forth, which is why it's indefensible that they got rid of Mark Jackson and Van Gundy. Because it was essentially like I get to listen to a podcast while watching basketball. That's what I loved about basketball. But nope, they want to keep forcing all this weird, bizarre diversity and this and that. And now they get people who don't really know ball. They get players to do color commentating that never even played in the NBA. And you don't have to be in the NBA to be like a play-by-play person or to maybe do breakdowns. But when I'm watching the game in real time, I want someone who's played or coached in the NBA. Someone who could talk, who can tell me a story in the middle of the game about what it was like. Oh, you know, this one game, I was in the locker room and Shaq was really angry and this and that. Like, that's what I want to hear. I don't want to hear what it was like when you were playing in college or the WNBA or women's college basketball. I don't want to hear that. I don't care. Go watch women's basketball and compare it to the NBA. It's night and day different. Night and day. I want to hear the commentators call out the refs, call out the players. I want to hear that. But no. They got pushed in the corner and said, nope, don't do that. You got to be a good boy. Got to be a good soldier. And it makes for a not an entertaining product and a cognitive dissonance, meaning what I'm watching is not what they're saying. And that's what made someone like Van Gundy and Mark Jackson so good together, because they said what you were thinking and what you were feeling. And it felt like, because they had that rapport where it felt like you were just hanging out, watching a game with your buddies, listening and watching a podcast. And they lost that. That's why do you think some of the big games, especially in football, get the big commentators? Because it matters. Commentating matters. And again, if you're watching these YouTube videos, which means you like to listen to people talk about sports, so you know it matters. If you're watching even someone like Colin Cowherd, you know it matters. And the NBA has completely lost sight of that. Completely lost sight of that. And so it's been less entertaining to watch. 100%. 100%. Go watch a football game. Go watch a great matchup between the Bills and the Chiefs. If it's kind of like some random pair who you really don't know, you feel it. You're like, this is not as good as if it was Troy Aikman and Joe Buck. Greg Olsen, Brady, Romo, whoever. You can tell. It's obvious. And that's something that is very underrated that either people know and recognize, haven't connected the dots just yet. But that is a huge thing that basketball suffers from. Especially watching some of these local games. If you're having your local play-by-play people, man, sometimes it's brutal. Sometimes it is absolutely brutal. Watching some Cavs games, some Sixers games, it's just so boring, some of the commentating. The one guy from the Sixers, I feel bad saying it, but he's just like, uh-huh. Oh, JoJo, come on, man. I'm going to need you to work harder than that. Oh, that's what he does. It's great to see Maxey come along in his own. He's really developing into a nice player. Okay, that was cool. Thank you for that. It's like, what am I watching? And that's also the problem, too, because when you also just have one play-by-play and one commentator and one, color commentator, they can't talk back and forth as much. Because in basketball, there's not a lot of dead air. They got to really kind of talk, where in football, there's a lot more dead air. So you only really need two people because they can still kind of carry that back and forth. That's why you need the two color commentators, so they can kind of do the back and forth, and have the play-by-play take a more secondary role, and still an important role, but you still need the banter. It all adds to it. It all adds to the experience. What do you guys all think? What do you think's kind of dooming the NBA right now? The views. What do you make of Edwards? Ant not making the top 10 list. Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment. So whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to. Something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.